nahangaika nami nifanyeje, kijana mwenzio nashindwa na.
And then I heard that there was that the Peace Corps was going to be sending teachers to East Tanzania, the first, but they were going to go in as upper primary school teachers, not secondary teachers. And that Syracuse University had gotten the contract for that first group of Peace Corps teachers to Tanzania. And I don't know how I made the connection. If they called me, I called them. Anyway, I got this position, contractors overseas representative, representing Syracuse University, the training school, who would be over in Tanzania to be a kind of a link between the Peace Corps staff in Dar es Salaam and the training institution that had prepared the teachers and would be preparing other successive groups of teachers. There's one funny story about that. To get that job at the Peace Corps staff, you had to be interviewed by Sergeant Shriver. And so they set me up for an interview in Washington, and I flew down from New York, Washington, or New York City, because Teachers College, and I sat there hour, 2 hours, and finally the secretary came out and said, "Mr. Hinkle, I'm sorry, but Mr. Shriver is so busy today, this happened, he won't be able to see you today. Could you come down another time?" I said, "No problem," as long as they were paying for it. So I went back to Columbia and then arranged for the second interview. I went down and sat there. Second time, he didn't see me. And she came out, "Mr. Hinkle, I'm so sorry, Mr. Shriver. He's so busy, but what about coming down again?" So the third time, I managed to have my interview with Sergeant Shriver, and he said, "Okay, we'll send you to..." I think he had to send me after that, being there 3 times. So anyway, then I went over to be the staff member. And it was kind of I wasn't really Peace Corps staff. I mean, I wasn't. They didn't see me like the Peace Corps staff had the country director, the associate director, then they had regional directors. And I was allowed to come to meetings, but I wasn't actually considered, I don't think, pure Peace Corps. But I showed you a picture, Jack Hood Vaughn, when he became the director of the Peace Corps, came to Tanzania, and we took him out to visit some of the schools where our Peace Corps teachers were teaching.
Now, when you were there, then did you spend most of your time in Dar, or most of the time traveling to the different teachers, or they would come to Dar and you would meet with them there? Or?
My office was in the ministry in Dar, so I spent most of my time in Dar. But we did arrange, I would try to go visit as many teachers as I could. We usually would meet, I would pick a location like Mbeya or Mwanza, or I'd pick one of the more popular cities and then try to branch out from there, and maybe even maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday I'd invite the teachers to come in and we'd talk and share. So that's how I did it. I would try to visit as many as I could, but I couldn't visit them all. And I think I showed you that letter I have that at that time there was a war going on in Mozambique. And what was that? Was the Portuguese? Who was fighting who? I forgot what it was.
Limo, I guess, the rebels against the Portuguese government.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had a few volunteers in that area near the border, and the Peace Corps staff director was a little concerned because I wanted to, I wanted to see as many teachers as I could. He was a little concerned that that it would be risky to travel in that area to visit the volunteers. So I have a letter which was written from the Ministry of Education saying, "Mr. Hinkle is a representative of the American Peace Corps and should be treated with respect." And I was supposed to show that if I got captured by the rebels. I'm sure they would have ripped it up. But anyway, there were some risky times actually in East Africa. Not so much in the Tanzania, but there was a lot of uprisings going on around Africa.
You went back in like the summer of '65 then?
Something like that.
And was it a 2-year assignment?
Yeah, maybe, I think it actually was 18 months.
Mm-hmm. And how would you compare the two as far as your experience from one compared to the other?
Well, I would say the first experience where I actually was teaching and living in a school was much more rewarding. I mean, you were living with the African students and fellow African teachers. You know, when you're a Peace Corps staff member, you're basically your cohorts, or whatever the word is, your colleagues are Americans. I did have the advantage of having an office, as I said, in the ministry, so I was able to associate with African people there. But you basically were worried about, well, two things. We talked about the situation where there was actually a Peace Corps volunteer killed, but we had incidents of Peace Corps teachers, getting in accidents, and you'd have to, if somebody was hurt or was hospitalized, you had to find some way to maybe cover them until they could get back. Tanzania was a peaceful country, but at the same time, volunteers would get themselves in some kind of difficulty. Accidents, or can't remember if we ever had any volunteer that got in trouble with the law, but except for that one incident we talked about.
And I'm curious, the numbers went up and up.
Yep.
Tanzania 4, Tanzania 8.
Yeah.
At one time, I think there were something like 600
Was it?
volunteers.
That was after I was there,
in the late 60s. Now with TEA, you were like with the first group.
Mm-hmm.
Were there other groups that went past you with TEA?
Yeah. I can't remember how many groups there was. I think there was like 3 or 4 years, three or 4 years. But then eventually the Peace Corps just replaced the TEA.
So the TEA, when you were there in '65 as a Peace Corps person, was TEA still there?
I think that they had replaced TEA with something called TEEA, Teacher Educators for East Africa. And I think they were sending people over to staff the teacher educational institutions. But I don't think there was any TEAers left. The Peace Corps eventually replaced the TEA teachers, secondary teachers.
Now, I was reading recently, from my friend in Colorado, that they had a reunion recently, about how many TEA people were there. 150 more than that, would you say?
Yeah, that was the first wave. I don't know. Maybe if you maybe wave 2, wave 1, they might have overlapped. So it might have been a little bit more than that at one particular time. And as I say, the Peace Corps basically took the group of upper primary school teachers. That was the primary emphasis of getting in there. They wanted to expand. In fact, I have this speech over there, the book, Education for Self-Reliance, that Nyeri wrote about. They realized that they had to start building up from the ground. You can staff your secondary schools, but you have to build up. So they brought the Peace Corps in for the stage just before the secondary school. They called it upper primary. And that's basically what I was helping with, those Peace Corps teachers.